happy October. I know, goodness. Agenda is kind of brief. We're just kind of getting an update on where some city documents are, if we have any questions on them. And then I do have some updates on at least the appropriation policy, and we can talk about the work that Carrie has done thus far, at least distilling all of the VLCT financial policies, all of them. So that's kind of where we're running around this morning. And I don't know if anybody has any additions or deletions to that agenda. Oh, we got Jim.
Hey, there he is. Good morning, Jim.
And yeah. Any additions or thoughts, folks?
I want to just talk briefly about the January 10th meeting that you and I have been talking about with this group, so we can take it to council as a recommendation.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Good morning, everybody.
And
Good morning.
budgeting, like a quick overview on budgeting.
Okay. And so to follow this, I'm going to update. Oh, I haven't opened in here. The agenda just to reflect that, and then I can add notes or supplement the notes.
Carter, one other thing. I did look over the information from. Ooh, is it sounding weird on your side?
Yes. It doesn't, but here. So what we can do is while you're speaking, what happens is the OWL speaker tells you, but then it also picks it up because you're coming from the TV. So if it's here,
no problem.
We'll mute for a moment and then you speak your piece, and then that way also the other people online can hear you better, because what happens is everybody else can't hear you as well. So I'm going to zip it and you go ahead.
So I did look at the job description or job responsibilities that Jim had sent over. Apologies for missing last week. Somehow I had a brain fade and thought it was in the afternoon, not the morning. The one thing I was wondering is, do we want to address that at all, and the roles and responsibilities in these conversations or not? Because I think it was a good jumping off space. So I just wanted to bring that up since I did look it over.
Yes, thank you. That might come in when we talk about the VLCT policies, if there's one that we want to look at, start with, especially considering what, your research. Does that sound right? Like kind of hold it in more actionable, but I appreciate you looking into that. Yeah. And also sorry, we first time switching to these bright and early one midweek versus our Thursday afternoon. So sorry about that. Execution of the switch. Yeah, maybe that's like where we can go with that conversation. I don't know, Carrie, if you have, or anybody else has said theirs.
The only thing on my mind is whether, Chip, you have anything that you want to this group to consider in terms of taking something to council, any other recommendations about various funds or anything right now?
No, not at this point. I'm focusing on reviewing the audit preliminary report that came in yesterday. Stacy informed me she finished all the adjusting entries they requested. So now I got to compare their report with the financials, see if they match.
Excellent. And I have to duck out a little after 8:30 to get on another call. So maybe I could just do some quick updates. So I saw Ellen yesterday, Ellen Stanley from Pasumsic, and her board is looking at the terms, the final terms that they prepared for the water tower account, or the water tower loan. And she hopes to have those to us by mid to late afternoon today, certainly no later than tomorrow morning. And I sent a note the end of last week telling SPNF to be on the lookout for that stuff to come from me. And I'll send a note today saying we hope to get it to them tomorrow, because our timeline at this point on that one is that SPNF has to review it. Then any changes that they propose have to be reviewed again by the Pasumsic attorneys. And then finally, we'll have a letter and instructions by Monday night for the council to take action to approve the terms of that note, so that I can sign off on it or Jim or I'm not sure which of us actually will sign off on that loan on Tuesday, just in time to pay off the construction line of credit that is due on Tuesday.
Mhm.
So Ellen tells me that she's confident that that process can work and that there's no problem with leaving the loan to the last minute on Monday night to cover that construction line of credit. So any questions about that one before I go on to the next one? So that's where we are on that. Second one is the fire truck. Carrie has been pushing municipal leasing consultants almost daily. Maybe it is actually daily. Trying to get documents back from them for the same process, except that we don't have to go back to council. I already have permission from council to sign that one. And what we're waiting for is their documents for a very quick SPNF review. I've told SPNF I do not want them like trying to figure out arcane things that need to be changed on this one because it's taking so long and it's going to cost us nearly $300 a day in interest penalty payments starting today for every day that we delay in actually paying them and taking possession. So I'm trying to get that one finished up. I still have some fantasy that it might be done by the end of the week, but certainly by Monday or Tuesday of next week, I'm hoping that we'll be done that one. And Jim, I meant to mention this to you yesterday, that I'm thinking at this point, Chip, I'm looking to you for wisdom too, that we don't change the loan amount based on any penalties we incur. We just absorb the several $100s in penalties out of our general fund and just keep the terms the same on the general, on the fire truck loan. Does that sound right to the two of you?
Yes.
Okay.
And,
All right.
and is the loan going to be for 868 even, which is what the invoice says, and not 875?
Yes, it's 850. I thought it was 868 and change. It wasn't even, but
It's whatever then.
the one I saw, but yes, the invoice will be for that amount and the loan will be for the exact amount of the invoice is what we're thinking. And I talked to Rick Peck the end of last week, who's the guy that is the person on the end of the company that we're buying from. And so he's aware that we're pressing as hard as we can. He's ready to deliver it pretty much immediately upon payment. And Carrie, can you just say a word about following up with VLCT about insurance for that?
For the
For the fire truck?
She and the leasing consultant will deal with VLCT directly because
Okay.
she's in Vermont. So that's what she usually does.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So we should, the day the fire truck arrives, we have arrangements for VLCT to put it on the policy to cover it. So I think we've done due diligence on everything from that, but I'm open to hearing if you think we've missed something. Okay, so that's the two of those.
Hey, Rick, I did have one, forgot to add, I can't remember if we addressed it. Is this replacing a truck that is out of date? Is it going in parallel to something? Is there going to be an additional asset that we need to liquidate or can liquidate, something of that nature?
Yes, there's an asset. The current engine 3 will be sold probably for, I don't know, 10, 15 grand. And Kevin will start working on that as soon as the new truck arrives. So there's enough room to juggle things around in the fire station. He tells me with a little bit of help from Tom over at Public Works to put an emergency command vehicle. So we're okay on that, and we'll try and sell the truck right away. There's one other little note here, actually, that I should bring you all up to date on, which is that we discovered last week that the fire chief's vehicle is out of inspection. That we missed that, that's the royal we, wasn't me, this one. Missed the inspection due date, which was end of July, I think. When it was taken in for inspection, we were told that there are holes in the frame and the rocker panels are shot and it's not inspectable. And we were hoping to get a couple more years out of this vehicle. So yesterday, the department heads meeting, we began a conversation about how to deal with that. I've given instruction that that vehicle is not to be driven at all going forward because the liability, if Kevin hits somebody or gets hit by somebody in a vehicle that's not inspected, we're screwed.
Yeah.
So as of yesterday, the instruction is to park the vehicle. Carrie's going to look into making sure that we're covered with VLCT insurance if Kevin uses his personal truck with appropriate lights and a sign on it, which is what most towns do. So we'll cover it that way for the short term. We're looking into whether or not we could buy a used police cruiser off a list that Travis gets that would buy for 10 to 15 grand and paint it and get by for a year or two until we decide we can actually manage the payments on a new vehicle, because I don't want to go for yet another loan on top of everything else we've done.
Was
So
the
we may
police-
have to,
Was the police cruiser that we just got rid of? Did we already get rid of it?
yep.
How old
Tell
is
me.
the truck, or is the vehicle, the chief's vehicle?
Oh, it's not that old. It's like a 2000,
It was used when we bought it.
the fire chief vehicle. But Kevin said that actually it's a Ford, police they don't call it the Expedition, but it's Explorer or something. It's the equivalent in police world. And the folks at the emergency medical EMS, Newport EMS, had the same vehicle and the same thing happened. Same year, same vehicle. It all just totally rusted out. So it's old enough that we were already talking about, we're going to have to replace it. And we had all agreed that we were going to try and get by for a year or two. So that's it. Oh, then two other quick things on loans. Ellen and I agreed the other night that as soon as we have these two documents signed, then we'll move on to the specifics about the water, the sewer fund note and the general fund note. And Chip is doing some calculations behind the scenes to find out, to kind of determine exactly how much those loans should be. You'll remember the sewer note we can take for up to $1 million and the water for up to 1.8 million. Not water, sorry, general fund up to 1.8 million. We're hoping to do it for less, but I haven't had a chance to check in with you this week, Chip, but I want to be super careful that we don't undercut our cash flow and put ourselves back in a crisis in January, February, March between tax payments again. So we'll come back to you all probably a week from now to begin that conversation. We're not quite ready to go there. And I'm hoping to have all of that loan material worked out in time for the council meeting on the 20th, if all goes well, so that we can arrange those loans by the end of the third week of October for cash flow purposes. And we did reach out to Ellen and ask her if we only did the general fund note for 1.3 million instead of 1.8 million, which is the portion of the general fund that we can absolutely account for in terms of knowing where the mistakes were made that got us into that accrual, that mess with the double counting revenue from the state. If we did that, are we in a problematic situation because the note we took for the line of credit in anticipation of tax income that we're working off of right now back in end of June, that note said that one of the terms was that we would use the entire general fund loan to pay back on principal that we've borrowed against that line of credit. So I wanted to be sure with Ellen, if we chose to take less than the 1.8 million, we are in a problematic situation with Pasumsic. And she said, no, as long as we give the full amount of whatever note we take directly to Pasumsic and we have the commitment that we think we can still make good on to pay off the entire tax anticipation line of credit by June 30 of next year. So I think we're fine on that too. That's it for loans.
Awesome. Just a little bit. All right. Any questions before I shift gears? I kind of want to talk about budgeting process and the January 10th party.
So I just want to catch this because since Rick's going to have to leave later. I just want to make sure that I heard that correctly. So we could just borrow 1.3 to cover the double accounting, and then for now, and they'll take that against the other stuff as long as we're able to pay the other 5 by 500,000 by next June. Is that what you just said? I just want to make sure I understood that.
Sort of. No. So basically what we're saying is that if we can get by with indebting the city to a lower amount on the general fund, in other words, if we can just absorb the other roughly $500,000 of general fund accumulated deficit, that's Chip's recommendation. And it's certainly, I think, something we all agree, the less debt we can take on, the better. But the bank will accept whatever amount we end up borrowing as the payment toward principal, as long as we fully intend to continue to pay off, the other line of credit this year, which obviously we would intend to do. So the only real question on my mind is, I don't want to get caught short and all of a sudden have to say to the council in March or April, we're in trouble again. We don't have enough cash to pay our bills between now and, our next anticipated tax income. So that's the question on my mind.
Okay. And the other part of that is, just so people know, I was contacted again by Jay Walsh, who is still concerned. I explained to him that the passive insurance is not going to cover this mistake, but he has greater concerns about some of that. So I very specifically directed him that if he does, to please reach out to you, Rick and Carter, that it would be better for him to go directly to you guys. And whether he will or not, I don't know. But that was a conversation I had with him at the end of last week. So
That's exactly the right answer.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Great. Thank you for fielding that and for bringing that up, because that's important. Okay, budgeting. Right. So where are we? Let me find. But I wish I had that wheel up, and I'm sorry.
That's all right. I can just review it.
Yeah, where are we at? Well, I think we're doing good, but timeline now it's October, so.
Yeah. So here's where we are on budgeting. Carrie and I and Jim and the rest of the department heads met yesterday for our weekly check-in. I reviewed again at length the process we would like to follow for this coming year's budget, the 26-27 fiscal year budget. And Chip, I'll just say all of this out loud. I think we kind of set it up so that it works with your timing. But basically, the things that have to fall into place are, 1, we get the final audit. 2, Chip changes the chart of accounts. He makes recommendations for changes to the chart of accounts. And we review those. And then I guess, Chip, we probably need council action on that, do you think?
We should.
Yes. So we would get council action on the chart of accounts, hopefully on the 20th at our regular meeting. And at that point, the staff takes the new chart of accounts and they do their budget work. And I've asked for meetings with each each department head as they're working on it. So I will be very familiar with what they're doing. And then we will, by mid-November, probably whatever that meeting is, the second meeting in November, department heads will bring a recommendation to the council for a first review. Council will look at it, community will have access to it, and we'll talk about it further as necessary. But the real change is that what we're proposing this year, and this is something I'd like your recommendation to council for consideration this coming Monday about, is I would like us to put a special meeting that Carter and Kathleen and I have been talking about from VLCT for a month and a half now on the agenda, a special council meeting for Saturday, the 10th of January, that would have a number of agenda items, the most significant of which would be an opportunity for community members to engage with department heads and council about the budget itself and to raise questions, make comments, whatever. And I've asked all of the staff to be in town that Saturday and the following week, which we're going to call budget week around here, so that any final adjustments that the staff needs to make based on any input that comes from the community at that meeting would be done the following week. So we're ready to present a final budget to the council for its approval the end of January, in time to warn it for the vote on March 3rd. So for today, the action that we would be looking for from all of you is for Carter basically to review that timeline with the council on Monday night. And then at your recommendation, assuming everybody agrees, council would set the special meeting for something like 10 to 3 on Saturday, the 10th of January. And we're thinking of that being more like one of the village old-fashioned town meeting days. where people come, we serve crappy hot dogs and macaroni salad, and kids are around, and we have activities, and there are at least 3 different items that I think we will likely end up on that major agenda that day. One is budget. Another is, if the council is able to move quickly enough, a conversation about the charter with community residents. And the third is, hopefully we'll be ready to do our final conversations about the bylaw revisions so that we can take action on all 3 of those as a council by the end of January.
Big meeting. That'd be really cool.
Yep, we could get all 3 of those hit, and then all of it can be warned for March 3rd is what we're thinking.
So you're thinking of this as a special town or special city meeting versus just a city council meeting all day long?
Correct. A special city meeting, like a town meeting day on March would be if we weren't Australian ballot.
And there is really nothing to vote on, but there still will be a check-in for registered voters.
Oh, that's a good question about the check-in. I have never done anything like this, so I don't know. But yes, I don't picture that the town meeting day would be anything other than effectively community building and advice and, advice and review. And then the
informational meeting.
Exactly. That's what we would call it, right?
If we're not voting on anything, we'll need to check.
It's considered an informational meeting and anybody can come.
So
Is the public encouraged to provide feedback and input, or is it,
Yes,
is
that's
this just
the whole
a
point.
listening exercise? Okay.
No. The whole point is to try and engage people. And, I've been talking with a variety of people around town about this. Like I could picture at one point, Julie LaForce was telling me about something they did when they were really trying to engage their own staff at Built by Newport, about how they understood the budget to work for Built by Newport. And they actually had jars that were labeled, and people got little chits, and they could put how much they thought did go in the budget in those areas, and then how much they thought should go. I don't know if we'll be ready to do something like that, but I'm picturing something that's much more visceral, not just droning on about numbers.
I'm a little concerned with waiting that long for input. At its best in the past 10 or 15 years, there were council meetings where when a specific department's budget was talked about, citizens got input at that point so that council could hear the input and react or think about it as time went on. And I think waiting till January 10th is a lot late. And the second thing I'm concerned about with the change.
Let me take that one first, Dan. Let me take that one first. It may be that I misspoke, because actually council and the public would have access to this and access to department heads by, I hope, the second meeting in November. And I assume that there will be give and take about that through December. But the final opportunity and the biggest opportunity for the broader public, not just the 15 people who tend to show up at council meetings, would be on January 10th.
Fine. And the second thing that I'm concerned about, when we change the, whatever you call it, the charter of accounts or whatever, to something different, is that that this committee and the council and citizens may have nothing to compare with in the past. So if you change the way it looks and how the numbers get in, how does that compare with what it looked like in the past, to sort of see that we're not comparing apples to oranges, but that there's a facility to understanding, oh, well, this new category encompasses page 1, page 3, and page 5, number C in that, so that I know that we're at least in the right ballpark.
Chip, do you want to respond to that? We've talked about that quite a bit.
So when converting all the history, every account number that exists has to be translated into some other account number. And so the history will act like it's always been that account number. So if you go back and look and you say, particularly wages for highway, that if you run the history, it's going to look like the highway wages were always the new number. And so the comparison year to year exists in just a different format.
Thank you.
And how did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it doesn't erase any of the history, like Chip was saying. It just aggregates it in a different format, and it makes it easier to consume. That was kind of the big issue, is that the way everything was set up, you had one item being hidden under 5 rocks. Now we just have one bucket. So you're not having to turn over multiple rocks.
Yeah. I just want to speak quickly to the January 10th model. I too was a little concerned, like, and how that works, but I do see the benefit of, being able to be there around November and December at the council meetings to see what's going on. But I know that there are at least 3 people in this room who have been to every community meeting for the last 15 years. And it is highly beneficial, I think, to make sure that, the big Post-it notes and where people can, there's a way to do this that we all have lots of experience in. What are your priorities? And then you go from there. Takes a little bit of extra time, but that's what I foresee. The ability for people to just walk up to a list and go, what do you see for the future, and write it down rather than standing up and, if that makes any sense. That's just a procedural thing. Plus, I think if I recall, this year's meeting is really just a foundational thing. Whereas I believe that you guys have said that starting with the next budget, 27-28, it will be a bigger process, because we'll be able to start earlier, right? So, we're a little bit limited this year because of timing, but it's really just a foundational thing to build on year after year. So.
Yeah, I'll just, about that, I think that's exactly right, Lori. And one of the art forms as we work together, I'm assuming that together we'll figure out how to craft that conversation and the opportunity in January for the broader community. But one of the challenges is going to be to say, here's the box in which you all can, at this point, you can give input, right? Because the truth is, there's a limit to what we can change at the last minute like that. But the goal is to kind of get people beginning to think, okay, there is a way that I can engage this process from the broader community. And then hopefully April, May, what Carter and Kathleen and I were talking about is we start a process that's much more about what are our general priorities as a community that guides the actual budgeting work that the staff does during the summer and fall. And it starts the whole thing 6 months earlier, basically. So this is a half step toward what we really imagine for the following year.
And the other question that I had, Chip, Rick, you mentioned charter and bylaw revisions.
Yeah.
And so is the council, I know you and I've had a conversation a month or 2 ago about charter. Is the council actually working on charter revisions, and with whom, and which bylaws? And is that going to encompass water and sewer and all the new things that we're trying to get in? Will all of that kind of go together?
I'll answer the second question first. The bylaws piece, I have a commitment that was made that I was told was firm from our lawyers 2 weeks ago, that we will have the first roughly 2/3 of the bylaws material, sections 1 through 3, back from attorney review, I hope by the end of this week or early next week. And Planning Commission will then take those up and begin considering that. And then by the end of October, they intend to have the last sections, I think it's 4 through 6, to us. And then Planning Commission has a process they have to follow that includes public review, public meetings. And then we'll have a similar process with City Council, of which this would be one piece, the January 10th. If we can pull it all together fast enough, this would be a part of it in January.
Okay, so well. That's the Planning Commission. Okay.
So Planning Commission will take the next steps on that. Okay. And so that's one. And on the charter, at the moment, I've read about 6 different charters from other cities that were recommended as being particularly salient to Newport situation by SPNF. And Carrie is going to do some work for us over the next week. We just talked about it yesterday, trying to create a document for the council to consider, to kind of begin considering, which means also the community to begin considering. And our goal is to do a lot of the kind of substantive work about what we want a charter to look like before we take it to the attorney. So we aren't spending a huge amount of money on attorney fees, trying to get attorneys to write this for us. And that advice really comes directly from particularly Dominic Cloud over in St. Albans, who said, you know, you can do 90% of the work without attorneys, and then take what you think is final to the attorneys and say, which parts of this should we be, you know, concerned about or paying attention to or adjusting. So it's still quite possible that we could, the council, starting probably October 20th, I think is our second meeting this month, right? Could have a first look at this, consider it again 2 weeks later, and then take some of that, play with it some more, figure out the best process by which to go at it. But I do not intend to create a special team for this, in part because it's politically so divisive in the community. I think the council will manage this in open meeting itself without a special team behind it. And then finally, we would take whatever we think is most appropriate to SPNF in advance of the meeting on the 10th, so that when we get more input from the community, we know that whatever we're considering, the attorneys have actually signed off on.
So will, as the council is looking at the documents in October, November, December, will there be public access to those?
Of course, all open session. So whatever the council's considering will be open. I'll tell you that my inclination is that on the first reading, council only would be given permission to speak. And 2 weeks later, we would do public hearings where anybody in the community can come and speak to it. So that folks in the community are speaking out of a genuine opportunity to really read and absorb it, and not just a 2-day opportunity, which is, you know, what we'll get on first reading, because that's how long it'll take us to get everything together. So I picture at least 2 sessions where we do comment, but the first one would be council driven and the second one would be open to the community.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome.
So I got to duck out. The only other thing I want to make sure you all cover, I don't need to be here for it, is if we want to take items to the council this week on appropriations policy and maybe credit card policy, because we're without a credit card right now upstairs, all of our department work. And it's really challenging right now. We're spending stuff on personal cards and then getting reimbursed. So Carrie and I don't want to move ahead with a new credit card policy or with a new credit card until we have a credit card policy in place.
All right.
So if y'all could decide whether or not we're ready to do that by Monday night, if not, we'll have to put it off 2 more weeks. Okay.
Great.
All right. I'm going to disappear. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
All right. Okay. All right, pulling the agenda back up. I mean, that was the next topic, is financial policies from comparable municipalities, looking at VLCTs. And I was going to talk about recommendations to council appropriations and maybe credit card. So I know, Carrie, you put all of those.
Oh, yeah.
all
And
of
credit card
them.
is within that.
Great.
I don't know if you have that.
Yes, and then I learned, so when I was doing my research downstairs with the lovely team, they said that there is this red policy book. So there is indeed written policies in this building, and it's a big thick binder, and they relatively were actually able to quickly pull up our appropriation policy. So I bet we have other policies. They're just like very physical, not in a Google Cloudy where you can just search, which is what unfortunately I am very standard used to. So I don't know if there has been any preliminary research into, do we have a credit card policy, Jim? You know?
I know, that's always been handled upstairs.
Okay, now that we know, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so we could check the book, but then other than that, we could use the LCT's model policy. So I'm pretty sure this was shared with everybody.
No, I shared it with you and Rick,
Okay.
and then the city manager account has it if you want to pull it up.
Okay.
in here.
Ooh, yeah. So what I could, because I don't want to, looking at the clock, recognizing the number of things we're doing, I'm going to make sure that we can share this. I can share it on the screen
Yeah.
real quick, and then I can make sure I can splice it and send it to y'all. I think homework would be to take, today's Wednesday, Thursday, final comments or opinions on it. What we can do, because we are not city council,
Yeah.
so we can, we can start a Google Doc and then add comments, and then basically have somewhat of a formative document, at least with recommendations, notes for the council to consider with adopting this policy on Monday. Does that sound good? Are people good with homework instead of just slowly reading the screen? But I will just show you what it entails.
And I didn't share it because of the council thing,
Yes.
because we talked about, yeah.
Yes. So it is, we're trying to be sensitive to other reasons. Okay. It is in the drive, and it must have been recently.
It's like called like VLCT. It was shared with the council.
VLCT.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh. There we go. Okay. Thank you for your patience. It's just loading. It's just gonna take an extra minute to load.
Yeah. And then there's just
Yeah, there's usually the little.
pain, yeah. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, I put them all in different tabs just to not have to skip around a 30-page document.
So it looks like VLCT model credit card policy and guidance. And then so this is the guidance piece, and then this is the actual policy that we would maybe approve and scrutinize. So a few pages long, maybe 4 pages. But I will make sure you guys can have this and take the next 2 days to look it over. Does that sound good?
Mhm.
Yep.
One other thing, just from having had like corporate cards, having whoever gets issued a credit card, sign some sort of documentation acknowledging that they've read said policy and that they are agreeing to commit to all of the tenants in the policy.
I like that follow through and closing the loop there. We have a policy and that ensures. That's really great. Thank you, Susie.
That doesn't mean shit.
Okay.
But Pam, it may not mean boo, but at the end of the day, when we talk about things like the insurance and things of that nature, it does hold them accountable if something does go wonky.
That's true. We have,
Yes.
however, the experience of what happened with credit cards previously.
It does give us a rope.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Alrighty. And is there? Okay. They don't have one.
Which one are you looking for?
Is there the appropriations?
Oh, I didn't put it specifically in here,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
it was in the PowerPoint.
yeah, it was in the PowerPoint. Did y'all have okay, I'm gonna stop sharing.
That one I think you shared with everyone.
I'm pretty sure I shared,
Yeah.
but then the links might not have worked. I think they might have done.
Yeah,
Okay. So I'm gonna actually tee up 2 homework things. There's one, so again, the credit card policy, important, and y'all's feedback is gonna be really helpful. The second piece is the appropriations. So our policy, which I'm sorry, I don't have a digital copy to share, which I will now digitize this, at least scan it and send it all y'all's way. It is brief, it is accurate, it works for downstairs so far. And for the most part, it really actually does follow statute, even though it doesn't explicitly list it. one deviation that I would like to entertain, because it kind of clearly lays out the difference between applicants when they have an appropriations for a special or a social service rather, that after the first time, there's this very clear second route that they take. With our current policy, it says after you have done this for 5 years, and to get 5% of the voters for 5 years, that's a very large ask, I think. And I don't know if that has always been applied. So I would like to kind of shift to something that's a very clear black and white. And also the policy that I'm looking at, this was modeled from the VLCT policy, I could tell, but they do require that when an application is submitted to be on the ballot, that they include a write-up. Basically, they submit a description of the agency's programs for inclusion in the town's annual report. And for the most part, the majority of these social services do, but not all of them do. And I think it would be really nice, thinking about the annual report, how it explains their role and who they serve. And the last thing I'll add is one thing for the annual report, I think it would be really easy to do is just have a table kind of explaining the social service, like just pretty much adding them all up, saying this is what the cost is. I have one more thing on it, but I heard, but I couldn't see if somebody had a thought or comment.
I have two questions.
Awesome.
My first question is on the credit card policy. Do we have anywhere like a list or anything of the normal purchases that would go on a credit card? You know, I mean, like, are we buying paper products on credit card, or are we buying office supplies on credit? I guess I'm trying to figure out, you know, like exactly what we're using the credit card for. What are we getting? Maybe there's companies that we're actually getting billed and not putting them on the credit card. They're just invoicing the city. So I'm not sure, you know, what the purpose of, I mean, I know there's a need for a corporate credit card or a city credit card, but are there specific things we're doing pretty regularly that wouldn't require, you know, something extra? And then do we have, we probably should put in like an amount, like not more than $500, $1,000, whatever that level is. Those are just two comments on the credit card. And then clarification on the appropriations, because I'm trying to understand this from the last meeting as well. So those seeking an appropriation have to go out and get the percentage of signatures, right? So what we're saying is they get the signatures the first year, and then they're exempt from getting the signatures for the next 4 years, and then they have to go back out, or they get them every year for 5 years and then are exempt. That's the confusion.
Fair question. So our policy right now, as it's written, it says they have to go out for 5 years and get signatures from 5% of the voters. And then after that, then they can be on the ballot, correct?
As long as the amount requested doesn't change.
Amazing caveat. Thank you. I did not mention that. As long as the amount doesn't change. And so with this new policy would say, hey, once you hit that bar first time and it's approved on the annual meeting, say Billy Bob wanted to put in this, you know, he got 5% of the voters, but then actually the majority of voters said no to Billy Bob. Billy Bob could come next year, but you would have to do again the 5% of the voters. He doesn't just get to be on the roll. Sorry, Billy Bob is the character I would use in teaching. Billy Bob hits somebody with a stick. What happens to Billy Bob? Like, you know. So then, and the one other thing on the Morristown, they have a little piece that says guideline on appropriations. As a general guideline, the goal of the select board is to maintain the social services budget at or below 0.5%. of the select board proposed general fund operating expenditure budget. I looked into it. I was kind of curious. I was like, well, are they following it? No, theirs is about 1.5%. Ours right now is about 3%. And we have similar budgets. Theirs is really close to at Newport's, but theirs only total about 107,000 versus ours is 217. Whether that is really a place, I just wanted to like throw that out there. Like I'm always looking and I'm so curious to how other towns do it. But I think that probably comes down to, well, one, the most recent we had recycling center, which we're going to move back to the general fund. So that will actually shift some denominators to the whatever. And then also have the library, which is larger. And that is kind of one of those unique, in my opinion, a unique Newport situation, because most folks, their library is like within their municipal building. Not most folks, but a lot of like local towns when you look to what they're doing. So there's some reasons for that. And I just found that interesting. I don't know if we want to make that any sort of recommendation. This is why I'm not saying let's copy paste this this policy, but maybe we can use the VLCT one and then use this to be like, oh, that's a good idea, or no, let's omit that. But anyways, I'll bundle all of these things into a nice email to you guys after this meeting. So yeah, and then by Monday morning, that way it gives us time to put it into the packet for for Monday's meeting.
I think it's still important. I'm sorry. I think it's still important to have the limit maintained. In other words, if you want to come back next year and you've gotten all the 500 signatures the first year, you got it for a set amount of money. And when you come back the second year and say, I want to reapply, the same amount of money is involved. If you want more money, you need to get another petition. And I think the second time you come back, you need to you need to apply and say that you have the same goals and the same situation, so that we know we're not funding something that no longer is a 501(c), whatever. I do that awful every time, but that we have the same situation and we're not funding something that no longer should be funded.
I concur. I agree. And in the policy, they even give like a sample language for their petition. And some folks do in their annual report that write-up description. It says, this is our total. It actually asks, St. J's policy is for these social services to explain their actual expenditure budget and then how much they're asking the town for. So you can see like, oh, their overall, this is just a supplementary. It's not the whole versus, but also some cases you could say, well, when we're looking at the library budget, we're really supporting a lot of that. So, which again, fair, love it. But that is one part of that description. I think would be really helpful to like let the public know this is the data on who they're serving. This is their big picture budget. This is what they're asking for to help support these residents and their services. So, yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Okay. So I got some. I'll send that out to you, but I think that's roughly our agenda.
I'm keeping.
Yeah, and you guys have a little homework, so I don't mind cutting out like a few minutes early, but scheduling the next meeting next Wednesday. Is this okay for folks so far?
Yeah.
I will not be able to be here. I have a dentist appointment.
Use your iPhone.
All right, great. All right, we'll send out the link for that one, and yeah, have a great
Maybe next week I'll be on the back porch with my rental in North Carolina, but while I'm at the meeting.
Nice.
For you.
That doesn't sound so bad. All right. Well, thank you, team. Appreciate all y'all, and see y'all next week, if not in between then.
Good to see you guys.
Everybody.
Bye.